Turkish club football is well known for its passion and ever-loyal fan bases, to the point where acts of misconduct are committed and other times lead to extreme violence, resulting in injuries. The league is also known for three big clubs, all of them stationed in Istanbul, and that's Galatasaray, Beşiktaş, and Fenerbahçe. These three clubs have controlled the Turkish Super League since its existence, winning 59 of the 66 league seasons since the league was formed in 1959, which is why they're given the nickname the Big Three, and why a reported 90% of fans in Turkey support one of these three clubs. However, there's been one club that's been a thorn in the Big Three's side since it was founded in 1967, and that is Trabzonspor. As I'm sure you could guess, this club is not located in Istanbul, but rather in Trabzon, and of all the teams to have won the Super League since it was formed, Bursaspor and Trabzonspor are the only clubs outside of Istanbul to win it, with Trabzonspor being the only one to win it multiple times. So yes, there's a definite rivalry between Galatasaray, Beşiktaş, and Fenerbahçe, despising each other over a long history, but Trabzonspor has a rivalry with all three of them, which makes sense. They just burst onto the scene and started taking league titles and league cups away from these decorated clubs. They're seen almost as the outsider, like the proverbial little brother of Turkey, despite being the most decorated Turkish club outside of Istanbul. But of all the rivalries that Trabzonspor have, including the ones with the Big Three, there's one that stands alone, one in particular that's the fiercest, and that is against Fenerbahçe. Now, rivalries can begin in a few different ways, one of them being by location, like Milan versus Inter or Real Betis versus Sevilla, but they can also be started because of the competitive nature between two clubs that build up over time, like Arsenal versus Manchester United or Real Madrid versus Barcelona. Now, no disrespect to derbies that are based on location. Celtic versus Rangers, for example, is insane and would make me question whether I want to win at the cost of breaking my legs. But usually, I think that rivalries that are based on competitiveness tend to be a little bit more intense, as they happen a little bit more naturally and over a longer period of time. And that's exactly what Trabzonspor and Fenerbahçe have. From the get-go in 1976, just the second season of Trabzonspor being in the top flight of Turkey, they managed to win their first title, not only becoming the first club outside of Istanbul to do so, but also by leaving Fenerbahçe in second place in the process. The following year, Trabzonspor acted like Anthony Joshua and decided to run it back, doing the exact same thing because it was so nice they had to do it twice. Now, this obviously created a huge rivalry between Trabzonspor and just the other three Istanbul clubs in general, as they were ruining the party between the Big Three, but no club was going to be more upset than Fenerbahçe, coming in second 2 seasons in a row. In fact, between 1976 and 1984, a 9-season span, Trabzonspor won 6 league titles and Fenerbahçe won 2. In those 6 seasons when Trabzonspor won, Fenerbahçe was the runner-up in 4 of those seasons, and in the 2 seasons when Fenerbahçe won the league, Trabzonspor was the runner-up both times. Now, something like that will obviously start a rivalry, with established talent being shaken up by the new kid on the block. But when Trabzonspor's manager/technical director at the time, Ahmet Azizici, left for another club, they began to stagnate. After this complete domination of Turkish football in the late 70s and early 80s, capped off with a league and cup double in 1984, the aforementioned stagnation occurred, and they only managed to win a few Turkish cups up to 2010. Where they actually beat Fenerbahçe in the final, hilariously enough. Now, Trabzonspor were still competitive and in the mix, as they managed to get second in 4 of those seasons, including 1995, 1996, 2004, and 2005. However, in 3 of those 4 seasons, Fenerbahçe were the one to take the title, deepening the rivalry between these two clubs. Now, up to this point, there may not seem like anything too special about this rivalry between Fenerbahçe and Trabzonspor. I mean, sure, there was some league titles that were traded off with each other, some close first and second place finishes, but nothing too out of the ordinary. but this was just a precursor to the 2010-2011 season, and where one of the most controversial things in Turkish football took place. During the 2010-11 season, Trabzonspor seemed to be on course for ending their nearly 30-year drought without a league title. Halfway through the season, Trabzonspor were firmly in first place with 42 points after 17 matches, and in third was Fenerbahce with just 33 points. At this point, Trabzonspor were flying high, but a history of falling short just before the finish line came to haunt them again, as just 2 points in the next 3 matches, including a loss to Fenerbahce, saw the lead dissipate from 9 points to just 2. Meanwhile, Fenerbahce's mediocre first half of the season became a thing of the past, as they won 16 of their last 17 matches and earning a staggering 49 points out of a potential 51. Eventually, Fenerbahce beat out Trabzonspor for the title on the final day, just on goal difference. You know, this whole thing actually seems a little familiar. Maybe too familiar. But then, all hell broke loose the following months after the season finished. An investigation involving match fixing, bribery, and much more was launched into the league, and at the center of it was Fenerbahce and its president, Aziz Yildirim. After being arrested in the summer of 2011 and spending a year in prison, the president was fully convicted of fixing 6 matches and offering payments to players or club officials. Multiple referees and players, 93 to be exact, were convicted, spent time in prison, and Fenerbahce was barred from UEFA competitions during the 2011 and 2012 season. Now, these investigations also led to UEFA and CAS, also known as the Court of Arbitration for Sport, confirming that Fenerbahce did indeed match fix and was banned from any UEFA competition for the following 2 seasons. Now, what's interesting here, besides the obvious claims of a potential league-shaking scandal, is that Fenerbahce, one of the main culprits, was not the only Big 3 club involved. Besiktas was also allegedly involved and, as a result, gave back the Turkish Cup trophy that they had won during that season, at least temporarily while the investigations were going on. Fenerbahce, on the other hand, did not have to give up their league title. Now, the reason for this is that the TFF, or the Turkish Football Federation, had not made an official ruling yet, as it was still investigating. The reason it was taking longer is that, allegedly, some of the police force that was investigating this scandal was potentially part of a terrorist group, and gathered some of this information about the scandal through illegal listening. In fact, one of Fenerbahce's lawyers urged the court to not rule according to the evidence that had been presented by a chief constable who had then been expelled from his job. As a result, a lot of the evidence could not be used in court, and in 2015, those who were initially thought to be involved were acquitted, and then in 2020, a Turkish court overruled the initial convictions and indictments of every single player, referee, and president, declaring all parties completely innocent based on a lack of evidence. Now, I hope that I don't get my ass sued or, completely berated by Fenerbahce fans in the comments, but yes, Fenerbahce legally was found not guilty for this investigation, but good golly, Miss Molly, there were a lot of shady things going on here. The rivalry understandably got even more intense from that moment and resulted in the Fenerbahce team bus getting shot at after a match in Trabzon, with the assailants not being identified, Trabzonspor fans attacking Fenerbahce fans on the pitch, and the Trabzonspor president locking a referee in the dressing room after not awarding his team a penalty, claiming it was for the referee's own safety, and was only then released when the literal president of Turkey came in to intervene. Truly sensational stuff. Now, it seems to me that the long-standing history between Trabzonspor and Fenerbahce is one of the most underrated in the world and needs to be paid attention to a little bit more closely, especially now that Jose Mourinho, the master of dark arts and no stranger to controversy, is the manager of Fenerbahce. Now, the next match between these two clubs is on November 3rd in Trabzon, where the club and its fans still feel cheated from the 2010-11 season, to the point where Trabzonspor has something very interesting in their club museum tour.
So in the Trabzonspor Museum in the city, there is a trophy case that says Champions from that 2010-2011 season, and it's where the Champions trophy would be, but it's empty, and it's displayed there to make a point that they believe they weren't champions. So Trabzonspor really hates Fenerbahce.